didn't they used to, like you said, with Theon or whatever? I'm about to say that was like a thing, right? Like,
you get a ward.
You have wards from other families for political reasons, but you kind of raise them as your own.
Right. Well, growing up,
it's a weird tradition.
It's weird.
Why that eventually fell out of
and also it's probably the number one reason that there ends up being usurpers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you do that and then they grow up. I mean, it's kind of like how we made ISIS.
All right, well, here we are. Time for another rendition of Puttin on Airs, coming to you finally from the virtual Airstream studios, my half of which is under siege at present.
You okay, buddy?
Smoke in the air, coming to you from the depths of hell. Yeah, actually, I mean, I'm where we live is not directly impacted by any of the fires in Los Angeles right now, but I mean, it's still a hellscape. Like the sky looks wild, ash is falling, it smells smoky outside, and there's a lot of real bad. I mean, there's always fires in California. There's a fire season in California. It's happened every year since I've lived here, but this is like far and away the worst. I mean, this could end up being, I've already read and seen people say, this could end up being the, like, one of, if not the worst natural disasters in American history by the time it's all said and done in terms of value and all that stuff.
Well, I'm glad
you're not loss of lives, though.
Right.
People have, I think so far there's been 5 people that have passed. But yeah, it's wild and it's freaky as hell because, I didn't grow up with fires, but even the people from out here who did grow up with fires are still freaked out by it, obviously.
Well, I mean, you can get used to something all you want, but it's still, I mean, I'm used to tornadoes, but I still get fucking scared when there's a tornado. You know what I mean?
You got the exact opposite thing going on, right?
Yeah.
Father Winter about to blow up your butthole over there.
It is, but like it's also the exact opposite in the sense of like, I actually look forward to getting snowed in and stuff, because I don't have a regular job. So it's not like oh no, if I can't get to the office, I won't close that deal. Like I like,
but they mentioned it. They mentioned that like even on the news here in LA last night, they like did a, oh, by the way thing where they said, winter storms are happening over in this part of the country, and they're pretty crazy too. Like they were talking about how like airports are going to be shut down. They made it sound like it's like going to be like a bad one. Plus, earlier you said your pipes are going to freeze, and when you just have like a gentle wintertime snow and you can curl up by the fireplace with a cup of fucking mulled wine or whatever, obviously that hits. But when it's like a goddamn ice storm,
what I was trying to get at was like it will probably be bad for regular people. Therefore, I don't want it to happen. But for me personally, it will be fine because I don't have to get to the airport. Me and Amber don't have to get down the road to go to work. And also, we got a generator. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, I mean, dude, it's super not going. I mean, as soon as I heard about it, I went ahead and took a shower, thinking might be my last shower for a couple days. But obviously, pales in comparison. And we hope that all of everybody in California is safe. And our airheads out there, if you had to get evacuated, we hope, you're safe on that front. Cause like, dude, even without the loss of house and potential threat of death, just even the tiny things like people don't just be having the money to go stay at a hotel 100 and something miles away all the time. Like it's, I don't know. It really, it not to get savage, it just really puts a lot of shit into perspective. And a lot of people from around the country that aren't having to deal with this, kind of need to shut the fuck up on there. Well, that's what you get for living in the, like go shove it up your ass. Sorry to make that declarative.
Well, that's the other thing. Normally typically the fires and stuff, they start in the like hillsides and shit where trees and plants and stuff, things that can burn. And also typically those areas are, because they're on hillsides and there's views and shit, that's where rich people live. Right. So it's like, it's a weird dynamic where it's the opposite of most natural disasters, like flooding or hurricanes or Katrina or shit like that, where it's always the neighborhoods that poor people live in that get fucked over the most. With fires, it's actually kind of the opposite, generally speaking. But the part of why these are so bad is that it's not just like that. Some of them are in just like, they've spread to just regular residential neighborhoods and regular parts of town. They don't.
Tornadoes seem to be the only storm that is like purely classist. You know what I mean? Like tornadoes pretty much exclusively fuck with trailer parks, so it seems, and like my area of the world.
Yeah, because
that's where we can afford houses.
Yeah, and trailers can be blown away.
Yeah, I don't mean like just the trailer park. I mean anywhere there's near a trailer.
Yeah, well, but that makes it sound like tornadoes are like choosing to do that or sentient.
I think that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm suggesting. Well, I think they might be the only classist natural disaster.
It's more, but it's like I think it's more like that whole the Bill Burr thing about shark attacks and shallow water, and it's like that's where people
where people are. Yeah,
with like the vast majority of tornado damage hits like trailer parks or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, because trailers are easier to blow away than like, I think the big bad wolf could have testified to that much.
Well, I'm just saying, you never hear about tornadoes in Vermont or California or any of these coastal elite places.
That part is true. I think the South and then like, well, really, I guess just the South.
Oklahoma, which I don't consider the South, they be having them.
Well, but I used to didn't until I started going there.
Culturally, I think that they are. Do you know what I mean?
Them motherfuckers are red. Plus, a lot of them have accents and shit. I'm
not saying they're not red. Nebraska people are red, but it's not the South.
Yeah, but Oklahoma, they sound Southern, a lot of them.
Yeah, and I mean, they are down. I mean, it's really just...
I also never would have considered Oklahoma the South until I started going.
They joined the SEC conference
there and meeting people, and then of course the official, the formal recognition is when they joined the SEC conference. But going there and then meeting a bunch of people from Oklahoma and hearing them talk and seeing them and how they are and stuff, I was like, all right, well, I guess again,
this is the difference between redneck and a position of living, because like, do you consider Missouri the South? Because a lot of people don't, and they're red as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, they wild. They are definitely. I mean, parts of the Midwest are wild. I don't know.
But they red. If you were just going by red, like, dude.
Yeah, well, Wisconsin. Well, I don't know about Wisconsin, but like, I mean, like Iowa's red and Indiana's red as hell.
Yeah.
And,
well, dude, I mean, hell, Maine's got some of the most redneck sons of bitches you've ever seen out in the sticks, So, like, I'm just talking about geographically, and Oklahoma is 16 hours from me, so it's hard for me to accept that they're a part of my region.
What I've normally done in the past, because like Missouri, for example, like what I've normally done in the past was, like, I put it down to, whether you were in the Confederacy or not.
That's true. Well, then Kentucky's not Southern. And a lot of people don't think it is, by the way.
Yeah,
but I think
especially
it fucking
like
is.
Eastern Kentucky is
dude,
definitely
even if
so that's not a good. That's not a good. Dividing line either, because during the Civil War, Oklahoma weren't even Oklahoma yet.
And also Maryland was. You know what I mean? And some people, because the Mason-Dixon line,
I knew that. Like, I thought Maryland was like Kentucky and Missouri in that those were slave states.
You know what? You're right.
Maryland actually.
You're right. Maryland was just very sympathetic to the Southern cause and harbored a lot of Southern generals that were on the loose.
I always kind of wondered how those...
but they're below the Mason-Dixon line.
They are. There's a very clear answer to this question. Maybe you know it, but I just haven't looked it up. But like... Or I don't remember. But those states that like... Those few slave states that like stayed slave states but did not join the Confederacy. It's like, how'd they get away with that?
I know I've always thought that, because that's a very
Missouri
having your cake and eating it too.
Did that, Maryland did that, and so I don't know how they got away with that.
The only thing I could think about, because there's two possible scenarios. Like I could see the Union, like our government being like, okay, well, at least y'all aren't shooting at us. That's fine. We'll give y'all a pass. But to me, what would have happened, you would think, was that the rest of the Confederacy would be like, absolutely not. You are fucking either with us or we're going to come in here and shoot, or we're considering them, right? Because the rebels would have been like, the phrase now, which it's funny to throw this at fucking literal Confederate KKK people, but it's like, hey, silence helps the oppressors, not the oppressed. You know what I'm saying? So like, you can't be neutral on this, because in their minds, they were the oppressed going after the tyrannical government. And these people are like, no, we want to keep every single thing that you're fighting for. We just don't want to do none of that. Right. And I think it's funny because, like, you know, you mentioned one time how much our opinion on Switzerland changed over the years of like, I'm a kind you to need to take a side. Now, obviously, I think the Confederate is the wrong side, but these people clearly were wrong because they were slave states. So I'm like, yeah, actually, I'm going to need you to fight for the Confederacy. Although who knows how the war would have gone if they had 3 extra states of soldiers.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was close, you know, like
weird, wild stuff. But you're right. It is like, it is like, you can't use
I love when we talk about shit I know, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah. You can't really use the Mason-Dixon line, even though that is supposed to be the like historical, you know, dividing line is that's what it's supposed to be. It don't work for me. But like you said, but Maryland is underneath it, and they definitely are not the South, in my opinion. I don't think they
they consider it some of them. I'm saying some of them.
Because Donnie, our buddy Donnie Singstack, who opens for me now pretty frequently, he's from Maryland, and he's come with me when I've gone to Maryland recently, and he does a little chunk about this because he's from there, and I don't remember what all he says in it, but he starts out by asking the crowd, let me ask you guys, I'm from here, you guys mostly from here, what do you think, like, is Maryland part of the South? And and you know how my crowds be. A lot of them are they're from the middle of nowhere. They're from, you know what I mean? They're pretty
very territorial bunch.
But it's always like very divisive. Like
that's crazy to me.
Like there will be people who are like cheering, like, yeah, of course. And then there will be like, fuck no, you know, that type of thing.
And it's funny because it's like,
I'm not going to say it's evenly divided, but there's a lot of both.
What's really funny is like, and you never know what side that person's coming from. Cause like, a Southerner would be like, fuck no, we don't claim Maryland. And a Northern sympathetic Maryland person be like, fuck no, we're not from the South. What do you mean? Don't lump us in with them people. So it's like, it goes both ways. But like Maryland and like, you know, Virginia, for instance, because like Virginia's it's weird. It's kind of one of them iffy states too. But I feel like this fits the theme of the show. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of poor, destitute people in Virginia, but Virginia, as far as like accents go, and as far as like what their economy was like during the Civil War, Virginia very much was like an upper crust Southern state with a very aristocratic, you know, sort of allure about it. Like the people from Virginia talk like this and wear their button.
Yeah, well, all the founding fathers.
And right, exactly.
And it's like definitely the fanciest South.
And it's all, and I hate to even say this as a Southerner because like I love and respect all of us, but with Virginia, I'm like, y'all too buttoned up to be the South. You know what I mean? Y'all are just too.
But see, and I feel like it's like this with every state.
It's like that's where Robert Lee. That's the Richmond,
dude. I'm about to say the fucking right, like the goddamn.
That's where
capital.
The Confederacy was.
Yeah, right. Was there, and Robert E. Lee, that Virginia definitely generally counts. But also what I was going to say is like a lot of states in this country, having been to most of them, different parts of most of them, you can't just point to part of the state. No. You can't just point to the whole state and say whether it is or whether it's not, because like Nova, right? Northern Virginia, the part that's near DC,
right?
It's like rich white lobbyists in fucking leased BMWs and shit like that, fucking talking on their Bluetooth headsets and crashing into coffee shops and stuff. Like,
well, yeah, and
it's not Southern at all, but that's Virginia. But then, like, dude, Southwest Virginia is fucking Appalachia, like where Mark is from and where Liberty is and all that. Like, but very much the South. And then in between, you got a bunch of different types of stuff. Then there's the coastal part and whatever. And it's like, so it just depends on which part of Virginia you're talking about. But still, I don't see any way you can logically discount the state of Virginia from the South, given that, again, it's literally where we were headquartered at.
Right. But then but you could just make the argument that it's like, well, okay, the Civil War there's not a complete dividing line. You can't say it was between the North and the South. You have to just say it was between the Union and places that wanted to have slaves. And those places just happen to be mostly in the South, but also up here too. I don't know. But back to your point though, like you can't just point to a place and be like, this defines the whole state. Like that said, there's rich parts of Tennessee and Georgia, but even those places are still very uniquely the South. Well, you know what I mean?
But the Confederacy part of it, okay, how about West Virginia?
Agreed. That's redneck as hell.
Because the Confederacy, that's why it's not a great argument.
But now we're going cultural, not location.
Which is what it should be, I think.
Right.
Well, I mean, dude, West Virginia is still like...
It's where the Appalachians are. It's the only state where the Appalachian, all of the Appalachian
Mountains. The whole
state
state is Appalachia.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not like West Virginia is up there it's getting up, I don't know. It's still close enough to being on the lower half of the country, I think, if you're talking about geographically. But anyway, that's why you can't use the Confederacy as a complete compelling argument because, like Tennessee, like you said, like every part of Tennessee is very much the South and very Southern, and
even the rich parts.
But East Tennessee was almost a West Virginia situation.
Right.
Like everybody knows this at this point, and they should. West Virginia only exists because that part of Virginia, that used to just be all Virginia, and that part of Virginia was like, we don't want to leave the Union,
right?
And Virginia was like, well, we're going to, and they were like, well, fuck you, we're going to be our own state then, and that's how they became West Virginia. And the reason why is because West Virginia, like Corey just says, entirely Appalachian, which means the whole state is mountainous, which means
no
there's
farmland,
not really any plantations there.
Right.
So slavery wasn't a big economic driver in that part of the state. Well, East Tennessee is the exact same way. East Tennessee is Appalachian. There was not a lot of plantations there. It's very mountainous. So same thing. They were Union sympathizers. They wanted, East Tennessee actively wanted to break off from the rest of Tennessee and become its own state of East Tennessee. But that was not allowed to happen. But so I'm saying East Tennessee didn't fuck with the Confederacy at all, but East Tennessee is still one of the southiest parts of the fucking hillbillies and redneck.
Yo, I agree. It's the most.
But they didn't want to fuck with the Confederacy, so you can't really use that. And
I know.
West Virginia is the same way. They refused to join the Confederacy, but dude, West Virginia is fucking,
and they're redder than any state ever. They're the most red.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. And by the way, I'm so glad we're in this, and I feel like threading the narrative of this show. I think that's also just proof of like, you can't just go, well, yeah, all the racist, dumbass hillbillies wanted slaves, right? It's like, no, just the ones that had land. You know what I mean? And it's also proof that, like, yes, of course, back then, absolutely, there were people like Thaddeus Stevens who were true abolitionists who genuinely were good people and believed that black people and white people those people did exist. I'm not saying they didn't, but the notion that somehow everyone in the North was against slavery and everyone in the South was for it is asinine, because as you've just pointed out, even a state where all of those people, everything else about their culture would insinuate that they would be totally fine with Confederacy beliefs, because they didn't have land, they didn't give a shit about it, meaning that if it was viable to grow cotton in the North, the whole fucking war would have looked insanely different, because they would have been like, well, now we need them. You know what I mean? I'm not letting our people off the hook. I'm just saying, that's inarguably true.
It's objectively true. Yes. If the topography of this country was flip-flop geographically, north and south.
So,
the current dynamic of it would be the exact opposite.
Yeah, because the like literal assumption that adults with college degrees, not all of them, but some of them make, the literal assumption is like, people from the South are and always have been inherently worse people. Like something like inherently worse. And it's like, I guess they would look at it like, well, you know, they all came from Ireland and Scotland. It's like, motherfucker, the people up north came from Italy and fucking Germany and all these places. Like, what the fuck are you talking? I'm just named 2 out of 3 of the goddamn Axis powers. What are you talking about? Anyways, I'm glad we had that discussion. That was nice.
Go ahead. No, yeah, okay. You go first, because I went first last time. You do your thing first.
Okay, cool.
If there's time at the end, I'll get to this, because this is an evergreen thing. It's not related to where we're at, so I can do it later.
I'd actually sent you a text on why I needed to go first, and I have one more thing before I get to this, but I desperately have to get to some Henry V talk. Because and by the way, I was aware of it. Like I announced, hey, I'm doing Henry V, and then we just had a bunch of shit come up, And I've been internally thinking about it, but I thought, Corey, a lot of times you get so worried that people are thinking things when no one's actually thinking that thing. Just let it go. And then
I'm very bad to do that too.
I'm horrible. I'm just like, dude, you are making up this. And by the way, human beings do that. We make up these worlds in our head where people are putting more pressure on us than we are. And realistically, they're just not thinking about it at all. And I was like, dude, you're doing that. Nobody's thinking about it. Nobody cares. Then I'm just scrolling through Reddit and putting on airs pops up. And the thing was like, is Corey ever going to talk about Henry V? God damn. And the whole thing was just like, he teased it. And now it's like 5 episodes later. And I wanted to say, just to give y'all a little peek behind the curtain, I was aware of that. Y'all just don't know how we operate on this show. Here's how the show works. Me and Trae both prepare a thing, but rarely do we tell the other person what it is that we're going to talk about. We had the holiday episodes that screwed us up. And then what happens is sometimes Trae will just go first, and we will hit with his topic so hard that there's not a lot of time left. And I'll go, well, I can't get to it. That's okay. I'll save it for next week because I didn't tell Trae at the beginning. That's all it fucking is. Right.
And he really wanted to go first last week too. But the things I wanted to talk about, I felt were very
prescient.
Yeah, they were very related to the new year. I was talking about the calendar and all that shit. So I was like,
couldn't agree more.
I don't want this to get skipped.
And again,
I didn't think it would take up the whole show, but then it did.
Well, it always. That's the thing with us. We're like, I just got a little thing, and then here we go.
But no, it's funny. With this thing I would have done that, but yeah, what you said.
I also didn't care. I figured nobody even remembered me saying that.
Well, see, on that note, it's like people don't. This is like not a good thing to say, or it's not helpful, or people don't like to hear it, or whatever. But like. That's what people say all the time when it's like the idea of like, if you fat and you think about going to the gym and you're just like, I just feel like everybody in there is judging me or whatever, or that type. And people always say, it's like, look,
nobody's thinking about you.
Thinking about you. No one else cares about you. You're the only person thinking about you. Everybody else, you know what they're thinking about? Themselves, their own shit. That's all the thing. That's what everybody's doing. Nobody's worried about you. So just you shouldn't worry about what they think, which is a good thing to tell people and is helpful. But like sometimes they are.
Yeah. Because I've seen the internet.
Yeah, like exactly. Yes, you see the internet and some shit gets posted sometimes where it's like, no, those people do exist. They are out there living to judge others, and they are paying attention to you and what you're doing or wearing,
and they're women.
I
think the only helpful thing, the only helpful thing in that situation is you got to go, hey, those people do exist, but you just got to do your thing anyways. Like, it's so cliche, but since we're sponsored by BetterHelp, I will say it. This helps me so much. It's so fucking cliche, but every now and then I just have to go, Corey, those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. It's so cliche, but it's so fucking true.
We should also clarify here, though, that like people who listen to this show for entertainment and are fans of this show, hearing a thing get teased on this show and not followed up on, them commenting on that is not the same as what we're talking about right now.
Of course not. No, you should, by the way. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, like we deserve that's a valid criticism. Like,
I'm not trying to balk
a person in the gym is a dick move, but doing that is like completely valid. Please, that's just feedback. That's all that is.
In life, I may do this, but on this show, I rarely ever balk at criticism of me and how I do things because I know I suck. You send an email talking about something I did wrong, I'll read. That'll be the first thing I read. But I did just want to give an explanation of like, I actually didn't forget. It's just this show works well. But before we get to a tiny little lesson on an overall larger part of Henry V, I did want to ask you something. And I think it fits this show. So I just had a holiday card sent back to me because I guess we sent it to the wrong mail or whatever. And this is coming back to me now 3 weeks later or whatever, because Amber, and I didn't realize this, but she sent out Christmas cards, right? I didn't know that. I do remember us getting our picture taken, but I thought that was just for us. I didn't know, whatever. My point is that I feel like used to writing letters and sending cards and stuff was like what everyone did because that's the only way you could communicate, right? But now, like, it's kind of high class and fancy to keep up with your correspondence. Like, fancy people and rich people stay like corresponding. You know what I mean? They're always sending thank you notes. They're always sending thank you bags. Like, they will send Christmas cards.
Really?
Trust me.
I didn't even know that.
They have their own stationery.
I know about Christmas cards, obviously, but the other thing I didn't know, because correspondent, that feels like such an antiquated thing.
I know.
And like they're still writing letters and shit?
Yeah, for sure. And again,
I thought only grandmas did that. I didn't know fancy people did that.
I did too, until like I started becoming friends with some higher class people, like some best-selling authors, some actors, or I'm not going to drop any names or whatever. And I've noticed they handwritten correspondence on their own personal stationery is like a big deal. And every time it happens, I'm like, God damn it, I got to get better at this. Like I need to be on top of this. But I noticed like Amber had sent out Christmas cards, and I was looking at all the Christmas cards we got because she puts them up in like a little wreath or whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know we didn't send one to them. I know we didn't send one to them. I know we didn't send one to them. And I start getting in that, like, you know, when you're planning your wedding, which I didn't do, you go, okay, here's the people I want to invite, but I also got to think of the people who invited me to their wedding that maybe I wouldn't have thought of. I clearly have to invite them. And I start feeling like, are these fucking people sending me these cards and then being like, God damn, Corey and them just never send me a Christmas card. And for years, we just never did it. That was my excuse.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I think that too, because we get cards from people, and we've literally never done Christmas cards. And it's one of those things where it's like, I lack the capacity to do
me
it.
Too.
I don't have that gene to
me either.
Design or plan. Like Katie gonna have to do that, and I'm telling the whole world right now, Katie is never, ever, ever going to do that. So we just ain't never gonna have Christmas cards. So, I'll think that sometimes, like, man, these people send us Christmas cards like 4 years in a row, and it's like I also wonder, it's like, do they think, but we just don't do it. So.
Right, but how do they know that you don't do it? And
they don't know. They don't know that we don't do it.
So this is my dilemma. There needs to be some type of like code word we put in our profile name or something that's like a scarlet letter. Right. Hey, I don't do this shit.
Hey, just so you know, we don't do that.
Right. But then that's a level of thing I got to do, because I'm trying to have no correspondence. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that I don't love people, but like it just frustrates me a lot. And like, that's to me. Okay. Like, I know me and you were supposed to be on the forefront of feminist ideals and wokeness, but like, sending out Christmas cards and keeping up with addresses, that's fucking women shit. All right.
Yeah, like that's what I was trying to allude to.
Yeah, I know you were. I'll just say it.
Because also they like Christmas cards are like very,
because they're good at it,
and they're put together and they look good, and like the pictures are, it's just like
women care.
It's just stuff that men can't do. Straight men can't do. Like gay guys could fucking.
It would never occur to us.
Right, exactly. And it's even if I decided I'm going to try to make family Christmas cards this year, and I'm going to do the best I can, the final product, the finished product, Katie, who has never done Christmas cards and will never do Christmas cards, I can guarantee you 100% the final product, Katie would be like, Trae, what is that? We can't send that out to people.
That's course.
Awful. It looks terrible. Like the fucking light, whatever. It's just like, what were you thinking with any of this? Like, well, you should have fucking done it then. That's what'll end up happening. I'll end up sleeping on the couch. So anyway, a woman has to do that.
Have to. Like, or we don't have to do it.
Or we just don't do it. Yeah.
Right. Like if Amber told me, she's like, you're in charge of Christmas cards this year, I'd go, well, guess what's not happening? Mm-hmm. We're not having them. Because like,
100%.
Dude, even with my wedding, like our wedding, Amber invited everyone, right? She invited everyone she's like, because I didn't give a shit who came. I'm marrying her. That's the only person who needs to be there. Her. And obviously I had, you were my groomsman. Obviously I'm going to tell my groomsman or whatever. But like, she kept being on my ass about like, she's like, you got to make me a list. I said, baby, all my friends. I know you got it. She's like, I'm just afraid I'm forgetting someone. And I was like, well, to me, if you're forgetting them, they probably don't hit. You know what I mean? That's just how I feel. And she was like, well, what if some people aren't there that you want to be there? And I was like, impossible, because I don't give a shit who's there, right? And she's like, well, what if they're mad? And I was like, listen to me. And obviously, I can only speak for myself as a man. But if one of my friends got married and I found out that they accidentally didn't invite me to their wedding, that's the greatest gift anyone could have given me. That's amazing. I won't fucking go, right? Well, that was my attitude. I didn't give her a name or nothing. And to me, it just kind of worked out. But I ended up having a couple dude buddies who didn't get invited that were actually, one of them still, I just found this out 4 months ago. he hasn't talked to me since my wedding because we didn't invite him. And like, by the way, he is a buddy. He's not a ridiculously close buddy where it was the greatest omission of all time. But I'm like, dude, you think I had something to do with that? That's planning. That's writing letters. Like, that's not shit men do. We show up, we get drunk, we say I do, we dance, and we try not to start a fight. Like, that's as much as, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of weird you bring this up because just earlier today I was thinking about this guy from way back in my past. I think because I either read something, I saw something that reminded me of it, but it's like how sometimes whatever. There was this dude that I worked with years and years ago when I was in college. I worked with at O'Charlie's and stuff, and we got to be, buddies, started going out to bars and shit like that or whatever. But then like I left O'Charlie's, whatever else, and we just kind of like fell off, right? Which that happens all the time, especially at that stage.
Work
of life.
friends.
I didn't think twice about it. It's like that just happens. Then I bumped into that guy randomly at Bonnaroo like 3 or 4 years after that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, what's up, dog? How you been? And it became clear to me very quickly that like he was upset because from his perspective, we were like friends and then I just ghosted him forever. Right?
Why didn't he reach out to you?
But the thing that
two-way street.
That's a valid question because the thing is, I was about to say, I said to him, I ghosted him, but it's not like he was calling me or texting me and I wasn't responding. We
People
just
always
went our
do
separate
that.
ways, which is what happens. But he was like upset about it. Apparently, I realized later, and I went back to the camp and I told Drew about it. I'd already met Drew by this point. He was at Bonnaroo with me, and I was like, yeah, and it's weird, dude. I don't get it because I mean, it was just like he was just one of those like temporary work friendships you have, whatever. And Drew was like, well, dude, maybe he didn't think about it like that. You know what I mean? Like maybe. That's not what he thought.
You was more of a friend to him. Yeah.
And I had never in my life considered that before that moment, that type of thing could even happen. Well, I was thinking about that guy and that whole dynamic earlier today. So it's weird.
Crazy.
It's weird that you bring this up because yes, it's wild when stuff like that happens. You don't know, you never really know how another person because it goes in reverse too. You could be like, be like, oh man, this dude rocks. This is a new friendship that really, really hits for me. But to that guy, you may not be. You're just like, yeah, he's all right. But I ain't trying to fucking go on a bachelor party with him or nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like you never really know how that goes.
You don't know the dynamic like
from either direction, and it's a weird thing about human relationships. I think. I wonder if women have those same. You think women have those same problems?
Absolutely, they have those same problems because women, I feel like, are way more cliquey than men. Like men, men usually. Like, and I'll say this, my sister and Amber and all them, now that they're older, it's a little bit different. But when we were like at like the college age or whatever, they obviously had their like core friends, but they also always had like a rotating 3 girls that were like the flavor of the month where it's like, oh, they're introducing these girls to the crew. And we'll be like, oh, great. And, we'd party for a couple months. Then you'd never see them again. And they were replaced with this other girl that they reconnected with at brunch, and it would seem like, and every now and then one of them would, I guess, pass the test and end up becoming part of the core group, but it was very rare. A lot of times they just end up going off elsewhere. And I always wondered, like, to those girls, like, they were like, I've got a new friend group now. This is great. But really, it's just, no, you were just passing through the main cast of Friends. You know what I mean? Right. You're a recurring character. You're not going to be in the main series. You know what I mean? And then some people, it's like, you're just a guest star. This happened one night. We happened to run into you at the bar and you came over, but like, we're not hanging out anymore. Like, we're not going to catch up. And like, yeah, because I found out before that I was someone's best friend. Like,
right.
You know what? Right. And by the way, in all of those situations, I considered that person a really good friend. They considered me their best friend though. Yeah. And I was always like, best friend when I grew up was like something that was like mutually agreed upon, like a submarine turning 2 keys. Like I got my best friend, you know what I mean? And it's like, that doesn't mean I don't have room in my heart to be as good of friends with someone. It's just that like when it comes to who's going to be the best man or who's going to take care of my kids when I die, it's this motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, of course it's that. Like, that's just how it goes. But like, yeah. And you never know what someone else is thinking. But I go back to this too, to definitely defend you. Whenever we started touring 8 years ago, by the way, 9 years ago, crazy. and we were touring hard. We had the book, we had TV shows and stuff. I had a lot of people who, like, years later, I would find out that they'd been mad at me that whole time. And I was like, well, why are you mad at me? And they're like, dude, it's like all that stuff started happening to you, and all of a sudden you just didn't care about us or nothing. I was like, what do you mean? And like, but then I finally would be like, well, hey, I was like, you did, like, we always had a go back and forth thing. I wasn't always the one that started. Like, you could have, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you invite me to such and such? They were like, well, I just assumed you were busy. And I was like, well, first off, I absolutely was. But secondly, like, you,
still so asked.
If we're friends, then you're my friend too. And you can call me and say, are you in town this weekend? Do you want to get, like, it's not on, the onus is not just on who gets to decide who the onus is on. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's on both of us. And the fact that you haven't called me in 5 years means that you're not allowed to be mad at me for not calling you in 5 years, because clearly you don't give a fuck, right?
I always think that same thing, because I'm always like, well, I'm in the same position. I'm not mad at you
I'm
at
not
all.
mad at, no,
right? But that's what I'm saying. People have differing perspectives on the same relationship or whatever, and you
I don't
never know what the other side of it is, and it's just a weird thing about human, beings.
But I do feel like the super rich are, like, very good at keeping correspondence, like, with everyone. You know what I mean? Like,
the people I'm thinking of because, like, dude, like, I get a birthday message from former Vice President Al Gore every year, right?
Right.
And it's like, so the people I think of when I think about what you're talking about are people who have, like, a staff.
Yeah, which is different.
Right.
But they hired that staff to
difference. They can make a whole, it could be a person's full-time job to just do what you're talking about doing,
Of course it does. But, like, they still care enough to task that person with the correspondence. Like, it's clearly important to them, and they realize that it's a thing that should be done. You know what I'm saying? And, like, dude, over, during the holidays, I get this feeling a lot because, like, so many either studios that we used to work for or work with, production pods, people that I met, like, I'll get all these either gifts or just cards like, hey, we're thinking of you here at blah, blah, blah production. And I'm like, fuck, was I supposed to send them something? And it's like, of course I'm not, like, they just, I don't know, like, but it makes me, I just get, also, dude, I know this isn't the Christmas episode, but also, like, you ever have someone just that you would never expect this person to get you a gift, just get you a Christmas gift, and, like, you're sitting there and you hadn't got them nothing, and it's like, I feel so like, oh my God, bro. But, like, I don't know. We just try.
I mean, I used to, because I even, for a while, there was a time there, like, when we were touring together all the time, me, you, and Drew, there would be times where it's like I would tell y'all at some point in December, whatever, I'd be like, hey, just so y'all know, I'm not getting y'all nothing. Okay.
Yeah. And usually I would say, that's fine, but I'm getting you something. Right, and I would.
Yeah. So, but just so everybody knows, I did also, there were years where I did get them stuff, but there would be years where shit would creep up on me and I ain't even bought my family presents yet. And I would just go ahead and tell them, like, listen, don't give me nothing because I ain't getting you nothing.
Well, I usually do get you something, but it's still only ever I have to see something that if I see something I think you'll like and it happens to be Christmas time and we're going to be together, I'll get you something. I don't go out of my way,
about this the other day too, and I'd never heard it before, and I was like, that's a pretty good, that hits for me, but society will never go along with it. This person was saying, it's like, I feel like the way gifts should work when you're close to people is like, it don't matter what time of the year it is.
Of course.
It's like you are out somewhere, you see something that you know that person close to you would like.
Yeah.
And you buy it for them.
I do that all the time.
And even if it's 6 months away from their birthday or whatever,
who cares?
It's like that but I'm saying this I was saying is like that still counts as a birthday present.
I agree.
So there's no pressure when the birthday, you know what I mean? So when their birthday comes, it's like, no, remember 6 months ago I got you that thing that you love so much. That was my birthday present to you, because right now I got nothing. I have no idea what to get you. So I don't, but I got you that and you love that. Well, let's pretend that was your birthday. And I was like, I never heard anybody say that before. And I was like, that is how things should work.
It is how things should work. And like, frankly, now granted, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but like, I know this is going to sound like I'm trying to be like sappy or corny. I genuinely like to give more than I like to receive now in my age. Like when I was a kid, obviously that wasn't true.
Me too. I feel like any grown man that doesn't feel like that is fucking a
piece of shit. Yeah.
In my opinion.
And because my thing is too, is like but when I do get a gift, I'm insanely appreciative of it, but it doesn't really matter what the gift is, I'm just glad you thought of me. And that's why I've always told like everybody in my family, I'm like, guys, I swear to God, if you got me a $5 gift that you really thought about and meant something to me, I would like that more than if you bought me a PlayStation. You know what I mean? Because I can buy myself a fucking PlayStation. Like I don't, and that's why like I don't really, I know we talked about this, but I don't like the whole check my Christmas list. That's what I want. I'm not telling you what to get me because I could do that. I want you, if we're doing this, which we don't have to, but if we're doing this, think about me. But yeah, like you said, if you're good to me all year, I'm not going to expect you to just get, and I do that. Like if I'm out, I go antiquing all the time to unstress myself. I always get my mama something. Ain't her fucking birthday or Christmas. I'm just like, if I see, I don't go there going, I have to get mom something. But if I see something that my mama would like, I'm going to get it for her. You know what I mean? Any fucking ways.
Yeah, I was about to say, it would be so funny if after you did that rigmarole about getting Henry V earlier, if then because of yourself, you still didn't get to Henry V.
It was about to get that way.
It could we've ruined this now by not doing it, but like you could have turned it into that like Matt Damon on Jimmy Kimmel thing.
Yes,
you know
with Henry V.
Yeah, where you like just never get to it, and you even do what you did today, where it's like people are giving me shit. I'm finally gonna get to it.
Damn,
and then we still don't, and you just find new ways to not do that.
I wish so much that I'd thought about that. That is hilarious, and just make people so. You know what we should do? Alienate and infuriate our fan base. Hey, we're about to take a break, and then after that, I'll be back talking a little bit about Henry V. But before we go to the ad people that pay us, I would like to say you can get this sweet shirt that I'm wearing right here, along with a lot of other goodies of Putting On Air merch at stayfancymerch.com. Burns, throw the graphic up right here. That's stayfancymerch.com. We've got the logo shirt, which also comes in like long sleeves and I think sweatshirts and stuff. You can get mugs. There's a Team Corey and a Team Trae. That's a squirrel related situation. Our current bestseller, Trae, can you guess what it is?
No, I cannot.
It's a sweet black shirt with a nice little font that says "The past don't hit," and we're cleaning up. People love it, right?
That's a good one.
So stayfancymerch.com, and we will be right back right after this. Y'all, if you know me, the one thing that I'm always super anal about is how I smell, right? You know, me and Trae talk about how we're fat and slovenly and whatever. And so I feel like I sweat a lot, but I at least want to smell good for people. And that is why I absolutely love Mando, because they got full body deodorant, baby, because it ain't just your pits that stink. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you just get that stank all over. And also in the business that me and Trae are in, sometimes we're running wild all day and ain't always got a time to get to a shower. So I can always hit it with my Mando full body deodorant. They got the cream, they got the regular bar, they got all sorts of smelly good stuff. It's giving me more confidence. I always know that I'm smelling good for my woman, and you can smell good for your woman or your man or whoever in your life. Whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere on your body. That's the pits, the balls, the thigh folds, the belly buttons, your double chin, your butt cracks. If you got two butt cracks, then you can put it in both of them. That's no big deal. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated, right? So it's clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Now, I personally would never leave it to something to keep me smelling good for 72 hours, but I'm happy to know that with Mando, I can. They got the solid stick, like I said. They got the spray deodorant. It's all baking soda free, paraben free. They got super hidden scents, bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport. I am a Mount Fuji guy through and through. But hey, whatever floats your boat. Trae, you're a big Mando feller, ain't you?
Yeah, it hits for me. I also like to not stink, and not just not stink in my arm pits, but not stink in my butt crack and my ball sack and all those other places in between. You know, and Mando, is it clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone? Well, 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor level was a 5 out of 10, but with Mando, the average grundle odor level is a 0 out of 10. That's 50% less grundle stank, y'all. It's pretty good results. If you want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now, you can find them in Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country. But for the best deals, you need to go to shopmando.com. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like the mini body wash with the deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use the code POA at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. And use the code POA to get 40% off. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's the new year, y'all. New year, new y'all. At least that's the idea, right? 2025, it's here, and every January brings with it opportunity. Brings you 365 blank pages waiting for you to write your story all over them. Your story can change at any time, and it can be up to you. In 2025, maybe you're ready for a little plot twist. Maybe there's a part of your story you'd like to revise. Well, it's the time for it. Life ain't about having resolutions that fade by February. It's about picking up the pen and becoming the author of your own life. Write it in ink. Make a lifestyle change. Stick to it. That's how good changes happen. That's how growth becomes real. All right. And you can use therapy to help you. You can think of therapy as your editorial partner in this journey, helping you write brand new chapters and create the meaningful story that you know you deserve to live. Cho, tell them more about you and therapy.
Well, I tell you what, I've always said that like my life before therapy and my life after therapy is the big like BCAD of my life, like such a dynamic shift. And frankly, to me, and I'll say this to everybody, like the hardest part was just the doing it, like the getting started. You know what I mean? Because being a man, being a Southern man, culturally, therapy was always something that was just like, just hold your feelings down. You ain't got to talk to somebody. And it turns out that I really did. And once I finally accepted that help, my life got a lot better. You know, the stigma needs to go away. But here's the thing. The great thing about BetterHelp is one of the hurdles was like, well, I don't have time. You know, I'll have to leave my house. I'll have to make an appointment. Well, BetterHelp, you don't have to do that. I was able to do everything, not just on my computer, but like on my phone, sitting in my yard, you know. So if you got an hour a day, you can just be at the house. It made it a lot easier. It made it something that I was at least willing to try. And I'm so glad that I did. And the wonderful thing too about BetterHelp is like you can go through as many therapists as you want until you get to the one that fits you, because it's not always one size fits all. Like I was very fortunate in that my first one was a dude from the South who sounded a lot like me. And hey, he used to be in a band. We had similar experiences in arts. And I think that that's, you know, very, very important. And just so you know, I don't even know if they want me to say this, but it's true. And I will. And it was a great benefit to me. I used BetterHelp for like a year. And then me and my therapist really helped me work through a lot of stuff. And I started getting insanely better to where I would get on there. And he finally said, every time you come here, you're just telling me about how great things are. Maybe you should, you know, maybe we don't have to do this every week. You know what I mean? He wasn't trying to just siphon money off of me. It was a real big help. And I'm calmer now. And I've used a lot of the tools that I learned in therapy to help me. And anybody that knows me will tell you that knowing me before and after therapy is the biggest sell for BetterHelp. They are fully online. It's affordable. It's convenient. They serve over 5 million people worldwide. And like I said, a diverse network of 30,000 credentialed therapists. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/POA today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/POA. Treat your brain right. Skew.
All right, and we're back. Yeah, it's time. Henry V. Long time coming. I know everybody's the suspense has been killing us all. Everybody's super excited to hear about it. I don't think I even know which Henry. Obviously, he's the fifth of the Henrys, but I don't think probably when you get into it and you mention some details about him, I'll be like, oh, well, that was that Henry. I'm assuming that's what I'll think. But I, off the top of my head, I don't think I know anything about this particular Henry. I don't think.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that I really kind of didn't either until I got into it, and I was like, oh, that was that guy, because he is the subject of one of Shakespeare's, you know, more famous plays, right? Like, I mean, granted, it's like, I guess if you had to rank Shakespeare's play, like in terms of like the ones people know, Romeo and Juliet, probably number one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet, and then Hamlet, and then
probably
Macbeth.
Yep, I think
and then
I think you're ranking them accordingly.
The Taming of the Shrew, maybe. I look Shakespeare's plays up real quick while I bitch about this. But anyways, it is one of his more famous.
Or you want me to try to figure out which ones are the most popular?
Well, just look at them and we'll decide which ones are the most popular.
Well, I think there's a lot. I think there's a shitload of them. Anyway,
we'll type in most popular Shakespeare plays.
That's what I did. Shakespeare's most famous plays: Romeo and Juliet, King Lear, The Tempest, Julius Caesar, Much Ado About Nothing, Othello, As You Like It, 12th Night. Man, this motherfucker really did it, huh? He
prolific.
Had some serious output.
He really did.
Shakespeare. I'm going to be the first person to say it. The Taming of the Shrew, A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice, Richard III, Richard II, Henry V. And now we're starting to get into some that are less known, at least to me. Well, there's Macbeth, obviously, Titus Andronicus, Coriolanus, Antony and Cleopatra, and then there's a lot. Yeah, and then the rest of these are, let's see here, Love's Labour's Lost and Love's Labour's Won. I feel like I've heard
those are the sequels, right?
And then
that was a romantic comedy that I think had sequels.
There's one called Timon of Athens that's widely regarded as his worst play.
Oh, really? Ever. That's the one they need to remake.
Well, probably wouldn't. I don't know. Our buddy Travis Irvine has written about it.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to be in it.
He if it ever happens.
Well, that's anything.
He's written a screenplay for an adaptation of Timon of Athens set in like the South or whatever.
Dude, it's so funny.
That's like the whole joke of it is that it's an adaptation of Shakespeare's worst
in Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually, I think it's just an unnamed Athens that's in the script, but yeah.
I knew that it was based on a Shakespeare thing, but I didn't know it was Timon of Athens. I literally just read it as like it's called
Tim Bob of Athens.
Tim Bob, right. And I literally just like the Athens part, I was like, well, that makes sense. He wants to shoot in Athens. I didn't know that it was, but that hits even harder for me now. I'll give more money in my producerial role. My role as a producer.
Yeah, I don't know what producerial. I don't know.
Anyways, it is one of his more famous plays. Maybe not the whole play, but like quotes at least. We mentioned in the first episode, I talked about this that like the monologue that Billy Zane delivers in Tombstone is from Henry V, the St. Crispin's Day speech, which is a very famous speech. Also made famous the quotes in Dead Poet Society, Once More Into the Breach. That's from Henry V, right? Henry V.
Oh, okay.
Once More.
By my buddy Tom Shulman.
Exactly. Him and Billy Shakes. But yeah, you've probably heard Henry V quoted and just not known that it was from Henry V, because a lot of his quotables come from here, because Henry V was an insanely regal man, a hero king, if such thing is possible, and certainly his legend was cemented as one in large part to Shakespeare, because I believe a lot of the things that we have just come to assume about Henry V have been from the play Henry V and not from actual texts about Henry V. And as you know, Shakespeare, just like any creative, took a ton of artistic liberty with the whole thing and sort of just invented a lot of shit, right?
Right. Yeah, well, hell, back then,
How'd you know?
Who's to say? Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you know?
Yeah.
But it is one thing to be like, I don't know how it went here. Maybe it was like this, but he did just kind of invent a lot of shit that they definitely knew wasn't true. He was like, we'll just make this. And it sort of just became the legend. And such as like the movie The King, which is Timothée Chalamet playing Henry V. I went into what?
When you first were going
to watch it,
you told me to watch this, and I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
It's okay. I knew you wouldn't. And by the way, that was another for anybody that doesn't remember.
Reminded me in between to watch it.
I know, but whatever. You will never do anything I ask you to do, and I've just long stopped caring. Like, you know what I mean? I've got my own peace and my own life here, and I know I get it. And a lot of people will remember from that first episode, the reason that I started to do Henry V and didn't is because I thought Trae was the person that told me to watch The King, and so much of the lesson that I had prepared was pretty contingent on Trae having watched that movie, because I wanted to talk about the historical inaccuracies or whatever. Now, I'm still going to do it because that movie was based, again, it was more based on the play than it actually was Henry V's life. Most Henry V movies throughout time have basically just been a barely even more, like, they would basically just shoot the play. You know what I mean? There was no really adaptation. It was just, they would just do the play, but in front of a camera and in different spots instead of on a stage. But in The King, they actually go, okay, but let's make it a movie. We can't just be having them stand in one place going, once more into the breach, my boy. But it's still adapted from the play, not from his actual life. And so in that, there's a lot of things that, again, I'm not saying the filmmakers got wrong. They got it right. They just got Shakespeare's interpretation right. And the dude that wrote the script was, holy shit, what's his name? He hits for both of us. He was just in that. He's in The Town. He plays no. Fuck.
The Australian
Joel Egerton.
dude?
Joel Egerton.
Yeah.
Joel Egerton. Yeah, he wrote it.
He wrote that movie?
Yes, he did.
By himself?
No, he had another guy with him, but like,
is he also one of the stars of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He plays
well, that's a little different.
It is, but
that still super hits. I'm just saying sometimes people that are like stars that can have like get movies made and things like that will like, they'll get a writer who hits it writing, and together they'll write a script, and they're like, I'm going to act in it. It's part of the whole package of things. I'm not taking anything
from what
away
I remember,
from him.
He did it on spec. Like, he went and pitched this and was like, by the way, I'm playing Falstaff in this. Right. Which Falstaff is from what I recall, a completely fictionalized person, but hits really hard for me. Like, matter of fact, I was like upset. Like, I watched the whole movie and then found out this is based on the play, not the real thing. Cause like, go ahead.
Well, just another thing that often happens is that like a star is I want to make a movie about this, and I'm going to play this character, and I'm going to get this made. They have a lot of control over the whole process the whole time, including like the script and what's in it and the writing of it, meaning they're actively involved in so there's still like a person who's a full-time professional writer who like write the script, but the star of it is like does rewrites on every draft and gives notes to such an extent that they're considered a co-writer or whatever. It's just a bunch of different ways.
Well, fuck it. Let's see.
That can work.
Hold on. Let's see. Let's go. Let me go to the fucking Wikipedia and see how much he had to do with it. Cause now I really want to know. Cause like, that dude super hits for me.
Oh, I'm sure he had a lot to do with it. Doesn't he like, does he direct movies and shit? Yeah, he does.
Yeah. It was written by McCode and Joel Edgerton. Now, is McCode also an Edgerton, and that's why they're not saying his last name, or is he like a Cher where he only has one name?
There's a writer who's a Cher. That's why
it says it's written by McCode, which is MICHO with a like an ampersand type thing over it, or an accent mark. OD Michaud, and Joel Edgerton, who produced.
Is that his wife? Maybe,
but she doesn't have she don't have a goddamn blue mark. See, the person that wrote it with him don't have a blue mark. Like their hyperlink isn't on Wikipedia, which insinuates to me that they don't hit enough to have their own page. Therefore, maybe he did do most of this shit.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I remember there's a movie called The Gift that he wrote.
David McCode. Okay, it says that now.
Oh, David McCode. Okay, yeah.
He's an Australian film director, screenwriter, and producer. Is best known for directing the critically acclaimed crime drama Animal Kingdom. Right on. Okay.
You ever seen Animal Kingdom?
No, it's on my list because what's his face is in it.
Exactly. That's the movie that introduced him to. God damn it! Both these actors hit so hard for me. Ben,
his name's
we're not hitting right now.
No, we're not hitting right now. Ben Mendelsohn.
Yes, Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah,
I really do love both of those guys so much.
I love Mendelsohn.
Think of
He's in The King, by the way.
Animal Kingdom was his breakthrough into the American. He had been acting in Australia for a long time, but Animal Kingdom is what put him on in America. Ben
yeah,
Mendelsohn.
it's actually
he took off from there.
It's been on my actual physical list for a long time because Amber loves the show, and I didn't know that the show was based on a movie. But any fucking ways, yeah, I think he did have a lot to do with writing it, which super hits for me. But anyways, I did want to talk to you about some of the differences between the movie, aka the play, plus and what was Henry V's real life, because there are a couple instances where I kind of go, that would have been more interesting. The truth here would have worked harder for me than the thing that you didn't do. You know what I'm saying? So in the movie / the play Henry V, it opens, and Shakespeare just completely invented this sort of aura about young Henry V, who was known as Hal. He was Prince Hal. He was obviously the Duke of wherever the Duke of Wales, or the Prince of Wales, that goes back for a very, very long time. The king's son was always the Prince of Wales. Now, in the play, in the movie, he's got two kids, Thomas and young Henry here. Now, in real life, his father, who was Henry IV, a.k.a. Henry Bolingbroke, as I mentioned in an earlier episode, but I'll run through it real quick. He was a usurper. Right. So before him was Richard II, and Richard II and him really, they were like obviously like cousins or whatever, because like all of them be cousins. But Henry started jawing off, and Richard II was like, we can't have this. So he throws Henry of Bolingbroke, the future Henry IV, in like a goddamn cage, and then he steals his son, the future Henry V, and has him like ransom or whatever, so that this guy, his daddy, won't make no fucking false moves and shit. Well, but the whole time he was with him, like Henry V was with Richard II, it wasn't really like a Theon Greyjoy type situation. Like, he was well taken care of. Richard loved his ass, and really to the point that Henry V didn't even really realize he was being held in captivity. He thought like, I'm just on a sojourn with my uncle, and we're having a good time, and we're hitting.
Right.
Now, go ahead.
Yeah, didn't they used to, like you said, with Theon or whatever? I'm about to say that was like a thing, right? Like,
you get a ward.
You have wards from other families for political reasons, but you kind of raise them as your own.
Right. Well, growing up,
it's a weird tradition.
It's weird.
That eventually fell out of,
also it's probably the number one reason that there ends up being usurpers. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you do that and then they grow up. I mean, it's kind of like how we made ISIS, whatever. But he grows up and he's like, this Richard II, it's awesome. Like, he taught him all these languages and shit. And then he grows up and his daddy gets out of prison or whatever the fuck, and he usurps Richard II, right? And he's like, hey, now this mine. And which is funny because it leads into this like argument of like, okay, like Henry IV, who usurped Richard II, he ends up believing like, my son is to be king because that is his divine right. And it's like, how can you usurp but still believe in divine right?
Makes no sense.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, he just goes, well,
God
I wouldn't
wanted me
have
to do
successfully usurped
right
if it was not God's divine intention that I successfully usurp, which means that I was anointed by God to usurp.
That's true.
Because that's how you grew up. You're not God, B. That's how God works with all this stuff. It's like you can twist anything into being God's will, or if not, then you just hit the mysterious ways button and go on about your day.
We had a woman in Chickamauga who very publicly cheated on her husband, and then she wrote a novel about how it was God that put the other man in her life. You know what I mean?
You mean like a really long Facebook post?
No. Literally wrote a novel.
Or she penned a novel?
No, penned a novel. Penned a horrible novel that you can get on Kindle if you want to.
Are you serious?
Swear on my life, dog. And
but self-published though, right?
Of course, self-published.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And dog shit.
What's it? Well, maybe you shouldn't say
I'm not going to say what it's called because I don't want, because I fuck her, but like one of her stepsons, I guess, because of the whole situation, is a real good buddy of my. Matter of fact, he's listening to the fucking show right now. I'm not gonna say his name, but you know who you are. You're listening to the show right now, and he's gonna give me more information on this, and I'll share it with you privately. Any fucking way. So Henry Bolingbroke ends up usurping, and now Henry V is son of a king or whatever. And naturally, when you usurp, like, it's like you can't let the other king just live. But Henry V was like, no, Papa, don't kill him. Like, he's, like, he wasn't a good king, but he's a good man. He treated me really well, and just whatever. Well, that ends up working for like a little bit, but finally he's like, no, son, I'm the king. Got to do some king shit. So he killed him and throws him in an unmarked grave. And again, you would think that his father would end up like indoctrinating him to like, dude, that guy stole you. You were his slave and blah, 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 blah. You'd think that would end up working. But like going forward a little bit in history, once Henry becomes king, he actually, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's a little tiny detail. He actually ends up having Richard II exhumed from his unmarked grave and buried at Westminster Abbey in the full regalia and respect, because he was like, no, this was a good man. Like, he was and he hated he's like, my father, maybe he shouldn't have been king, but also my father oughtn't to have done that, because my daddy also fucking didn't hit, as a lot of usurpers don't, because a lot of, like, they always try to pin it as like, I'm usurping for the people because we need, but it's like, no, it's for you. You know what I mean? And then conversely, Henry V is regarded as one of, if not the greatest king England ever had, in terms of being just, being noble, being at times a fierce warrior, but also someone who could go, look, we don't have to invade everywhere. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering, because I don't have any evidence to back this up. It's all anecdotal. It seems to me I've heard on a bunch of occasions where the son of a usurper ends up being a really good leader. And let me ask if you buy my theory on that. And my theory on that is because Henry V didn't grow up in royal court. He didn't grow up assuming he would be king. His father doesn't even become king till he's 13. So he doesn't have, not that he wasn't kind of spoiled, like he was still king adjacent, but like from birth, he wasn't anointed to be the king. Therefore, he was less of a piece of shit.
I think you're definitely onto something there. I'm trying to look up something I just read the other day. But in ancient Rome, I never knew this, and I might have this a little bit wrong, because again, I read this like a week or two ago after watching that Gladiator show on Peacock, and then I was reading around about Rome.
Those about to die?
Yeah, as you are wont to do. Show does hit, and it's always fun to just read about Rome stuff. But apparently, pretty much every emperor Rome ever had who ascended through
birthright,
paternal lineage or birthright, like, was a
monster,
huge piece of shit.
Yeah.
And not all of the ones who didn't were good, but all the ones who were good or great were
worked their way up.
Appointed emperor. Their daddies wasn't emperor either. Now, all those guys, pretty much all those guys, they still were like rich kids.
Yeah, well,
they still,
and we're comparing
the donkey mud or nothing and get all the way to fucking.
And let's also be and let's also be clear here. Even in the Henry V, when I'm talking about how great he is, we're still comparing brutal dictators to brutal dictators. It's just like that's where we're starting from. So if you're starting from there, you can go, yeah, well, in that case, this one's still better though. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Except I think there's one exception. I think Emperor Titus ascended through birthright and was actually a pretty good emperor. But I think he's like the only one. So I think you're probably on to something with that.
Okay. That makes sense. Because,
I mean, how many people, like, I don't know, people that are born to, like, look at like fucking Mark Davis in the NFL.
Right. Politicians' kids, too.
But yeah, right. People that are just born to it and assume it their whole life and never really have to do anything else. They end up being fucking fail.
Chet Hanks.
Or whatever, Yeah. I saw somebody speculate the other day that Chet Hanks had gotten that patois that he likes to speak in because he had like a Jamaican nanny or something. Because
so it's natural.
I think they were just fucking around, but I thought that was a funny take on it, because I guess apparently that used to happen sometimes. Like, look, this fucked up passed on hit. Obviously, a lot of people used to have black nannies and stuff, back in the day, like rich white kids and shit, even plantation owners' kids and stuff. And I guess a lot of times they would like end up talking like a mammy or whatever, or just like kind of sort of, and would have to have it like taught out of them or corrected or whatever, but like that type of. And then someone said that was like a Today I Learned thing on Reddit, and then someone in the comments was like, "Hey, maybe Chet Hanks had a Jamaican nanny."
Nice,
and that's why people are like, "Holy shit, maybe he did." I'm sure he's just he's more likely to have just had a brain injury, and that's why he thinks it has to talk like that. But
just thinking about some little Johnny Reb boy soldier just going, "I'm gonna go upside your head with a skillet." Like that's so insane. Yeah. But I mean, whatever. I could understand if Chet Hanks having a Jamaican nanny would like maybe he would have some phrases that he picked up. Yeah. But it's just I don't think it was like natural for Tom to come home and be like, "Hey, Pixar gave me a bunch of stuff for me to give you, Chet. Do you like it's a bumbleclat, Buzz Lightyear, one."
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But anyways, yeah, I mean, fuck, dude, Julius Caesar, like, obviously the end of his reign was marred with tyranny and stuff, but like, he's unassailable first run, like people heralded him as a great leader or whatever, and that motherfucker had to work his way up, so like, it just kind of makes sense. Anyways, in the play/movie, Prince Hal is viewed as like, he was never going to be king because his father was going to make his younger brother, Thomas, be king. So he was just a drunk. He never gave a shit. He hung out with this big ogre named Falstaff, which is who Edgerton plays in the movie. He hated his father. He just was whoring about town. And like, his drinking was legendary or whatever. Well, for the record, to give Shakespeare, I guess, the benefit of a doubt, there's no proof that wasn't true, but there's also zero proof that was true.
So much of old ass history be like that.
I know. And that's honestly why I like talking about it. Cause I'm like, if I fuck something up, could have been like, that's the thing. Like even with King, I would say this to our fans a lot. Like a lot of times when I've got something wrong, I promise you, I can show you where I read that it said that. You know what I mean? Like you might have read a different, because I'll read like 5 or 6 different things and I'll end up going, which version do I go with? Well, the one that hits the hardest, obviously. But anyways, in like I said, in the play, his brother, in the play, he doesn't want anything to do with his dad. He finds out his dad is feuding with the Hotspurs, which was this group of rebels who was like on his side. They were sort of like in his court. And they were from, I guess, the trash part of England, or perhaps
from Tottenham,
maybe Tottenham. That sounds
the reason
about
that
right.
I say that is because the Premier League team from Tottenham is called the Hotspurs.
Maybe okay. We'll just say that. It doesn't matter. It does.
And also, I think they don't hit. But I don't
right. Yeah.
I don't really keep up with the Premier League, but
and they're like, and they're sort of like young hotshot leader was Percy Hotspur, who was like a soldier in Bolingbroke's army or whatever. But in the play, he's got a cousin Mortimer, that has been taken captive by the people in Scotland, and Bolingbroke won't pay for cousin Mortimer's ransom. And this pisses Hotspur and them off, because he's like, we've given everything to your family. Like we serve you, we fought for you, we've claimed these lands for you. My cousin is being held ransom in Scotland, and all you got to do is give them, just barely any tuppence, spare tuppence, whatever tuppence you got in the royal couch, and you can get him out, and you won't fucking do it. And the king's like, well, I'm not convinced that he's actually being held ransom. I think he's a goddamn spy. That's what I think is going on. And this pisses the Hotspurs off, and they're like, you know what? Fuck this. We're rebelling against King Henry IV and all the army. And in the play, this goes to happen that Henry IV's son, Thomas, is going to lead this battle, and Prince Hal, future Henry V, hears about it and is like, I don't want my brother to die. Fuck this. This is bullshit. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to save the day. So he goes out and he's like, hey, instead of this battle that we're all doing, how about here's what we do? Me and Percy will just fight it out one-on-one right now. So sort of like
classic. Yeah.
Very classic. Very Game of Thronesy. Like, nope, trial by combat. Trial by combat, right? Well, that's what Henry wanted to do. Percy also wants to do this because his blood's boiling. He's like, sweet, I just got to kill one motherfucker, this drunken ass prince that ain't ever done shit, this tiny little bitch boy. I'm in. Henry's brother is like super pissed because he's like, what are you doing? Like, this is my battle, bro. Like, this is supposed to be my shining moment. And if you do this, you're all they're going to be talking about. And he's like, hello, I'm saving thousands of lives by doing this. Can we cut the selfish bullshit? Well, Percy's army was like, no, we want to battle. Fuck this. But Percy goes into business for himself, works himself into a chute, and then is like, all right, we're doing this. Well, Henry fucking works his ass, beats the shit out of him, cuts his head off, throws it at his brother, and is like, there you go. Are you happy now? And his brother's like, no, I'm not happy. I wanted to do it. You know what I'm saying? So he's doing this because he doesn't want his brother to go to war. Again, this is in the play. That did not happen in real life. What happened in real life, in my opinion, is more wild. There is this battle, right? And it is called, the Battle of Shrewsbury, right? And this is between the forces of Henry IV and the rebel army led by, who I said, Henry, Hotspur, Percy. So Henry V.
It's Henry, not Harry?
Henry. Yeah, my bad. Did I say Harry?
No, the reason I ask is because I Googled. Oh, okay. No, look. All right. Because I Googled, I Googled, why is Tottenham called the Hotspur? I want to find out if it was the same guy. So the name Hotspur was picked to pay homage to Sir Henry Percy, better known as Harry Hotspur, from Shakespeare's King Henry IV, Part 1, as he and his family owned land in the area known as Northumberland Park and at Tottenham Marshes, which is where the club played its first game. The historic building known as Percy House, which is now home to the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation, is right beside the stadium, was built by the Duke of Northumberland in the 1740s. He inherited the fortune and lands from Harry Hotspur's family, the Percy family. And so they were from Tottenham, and you said that's a part of the place that don't hit, I guess. When I Googled why is Tottenham called Hotspur, first Google auto-corrected it to why is Tottenham so bad? So I think I was right that they don't hit. But anyway,
the Titans of the pond.
This dude you're talking about is the namesake of the Premier League team, the Tottenham Spurs.
Well, that checks out.
So anyway,
this little excerpt right here is where I'm going to leave off today, and we can get into your thing because it's what I wanted to get to. But the real thing that happened, it was the Battle of Shrewsbury, like I said, fought July 21st, 1403. Long fucking time ago. How could we ever deem to assume we know something that happened in 1403 between the forces of the Henry IV and Henry Hotspur Percy? Henry V at the time is only 16 years old. He's going to fight alongside his father, right? In the play, the father's not there. It's the kids doing all this shit, but he's going to fight alongside his father. And there wasn't a volunteer battle. They did just battle, so none of that happened. But what did happen was during that battle, Prince Henry, Henry V, he gets shot by an arrow in his face, like just below his eye, through his like orbital bone and out the other side, right? No, and it literally lodged into his skull, right? So it like reportedly enters under his left eye, penetrated 6 inches deep, which is insanely close to his brain, right?
Of course, yeah.
So in any other situation, you're dead. So
you're saying an arrow went like into his cheek, under his eye, like straight back into the middle of his head?
Accurate. Yes.
That's fucking bananas. And I mean, obviously he survived this.
Yes, he did survive it. And that's
incredible. Anyone like that anybody that even got like a cut on their arm from a fucking dirty ass sword back then. It's like, well, that sword had poop all over it. So like, and they didn't know what antibiotics or germs were. So like, that everybody just died of everything. Right. So if you get shot in the face with a fucking arrow and live, I could kind of see people believing you were chosen by God to be the leader.
And this goes back to what you were saying about when people are watching movies or hearing these stories, they're like, oh, well, no one would have survived that. It's like, right, but he did, and that's why you reading about him. Right, you know what I mean? Like, you were correct. Most people would have died. I mean, modern surgeons will tell you, like, it's genuinely a miracle upon miracle. Like, dude, that could take you out now. You know,
of course, and back an arrow to the face.
Yeah,
of course it could.
And back then, it's not just that you have to risk, because, like, dude, like you said, people back then, it wasn't just the injury; it was the fucking infection, right? That alone, like,
not most of the time, that's what it was.
Yeah, it could have just grazed his face.
They didn't know what infection was.
Exactly.
He's got the rot. Prepare the grave. You know, they didn't know what to do.
Luckily for him, you know, even though doctors were all thinking, as you've said, thinking that people had witches in their blood, he did have the best assumers of witch blood that you could have. You know what I mean? He's got the best doctors. So he's taken to Kenilworth Castle, where the royal surgeon, John Bradmore, not only came to him, Trae, he was summoned to him. People used to get summoned. They don't get summoned as much anymore, I don't feel.
I don't know. My ass gets summoned around this place all the time.
Well, that's true. My wife be summoning me. So Bradmore described the procedure in his medical manual as Philomena. That's his medical manual, which offers an insane look at how medieval surgery went. So the wound was actually cleaned with what else? Wine-soaked linen to reduce infection, and he just continually kept pouring wine on the wound, which, like, I know didn't hit for him, but like kept him alive. He's examining the wound or whatever, and he's like, okay, like I'm gonna need like a pretty special type of operation thingy to do this. So what happened was they had like this screw threaded these like tongs, and they ended up having to like cut one in half and like make this thing even tinier, like sliver it down so they could get, because like not only does he have to get in there to do this thing, he also got to like miss his brain. You know what I mean? He can't accidentally shove the arrow in a little bit more. He can't go too far behind the arrow to pull it out because he might hit his brain. So basically they get this thing and they sort of run it along the side of it and sort of like screw it. And it's just sort of screwing into his goddamn face. And by the way, like no numbing agents whatsoever.
No, of course not.
No pain management except for whatever their milk of the poppy was, but it was probably just he was wine drunk. Like that's it. Like he's just sitting there biting on not even a bullet. They didn't have bullets to bite on. So he's just sort of taking all this shit. And once he screws this thing in there, it sort of like latches on the arrow, and then he sort of unscrews it back and it sort of pulls it sort of like a cork, like in a wine, thing or whatever. Then the wound was irrigated with this honey-based solution because apparently they did know back then that honey had natural antibacterial properties. I don't know if it was just that like they had seen like, oh, honey never seems to go bad. Like we can always have it. So maybe these things that get on our other, like it doesn't, do you know what I'm saying? Like that's the only, it's not like they could run it under a microscope.
Right, yeah. They did not know it had antibacterial properties because they ain't know what bacteria was, but they knew that it like hit it,
something.
Wounds. Yeah, right.
And
I feel like back then we just put all kinds of different stuff on things.
Yeah, just to see what
some
hit.
of it like kind of worked, so then we just kept doing it. And actually that's sort of just how medicine became medicine, I believe.
Right. So he irrigates it out with like a honey-based solution and cleans it all out, and then he just shoved a bunch of wine-soaked linen into the hole so that it would heal up or whatever. But he had a scar on his face for the rest of his life, but that was about it. I mean, that's really all that happened to him. He survived, and then he goes on to become Henry V, which I'll get into in a later discussion. But yeah, my point is like, I don't know. I think surviving a fucking arrow to the head, I'd have made that work for the movie, and I know you can't. By the way, this surgery, I don't know why I didn't mention this. The surgery took more than one day. Like the surgery kind of took a week. He had to slowly do all this shit. So Henry's got an arrow through his face for like a week, and they're just slowly pulling it out. Like I'm aware you can't show that whole thing in a movie, but do a time lapse. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, one more break.
And now, wieners. Have better sex with BlueChew. BlueChew is the original brand offering chewable tablets. These erection-enhancing tablets help men achieve stronger, harder, longer-lasting boners for sexual activities. I don't know why I felt the need to clarify that. That's what you use a boner for, right? Well, the BlueChew's got your back. BlueChew's putting its money where its mouth is, putting its money where your dick is, better yet, offering you a month for free. The process is very simple. You can sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. BlueChew's tablets are made in the U.S. of A., prepared and shipped directly to your door, and you can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead to get down, or you can be ready to get down whenever an opportunity comes up. The best part of the whole thing is that you do it all down there on the internet there, which means no more visits to the doctor's office, no more awkward wiener-based conversations, no more waiting in line for your wiener pills at the pharmacy, running into your old guidance counselor. You ain't got to worry about none of that because you do it all online with BlueChew. Joe, tell them more.
Oh, my God. I love it, man. And a lot of people ask me, they're like, Corey, does it work? And I say, man, it makes my dick harder than having a positive attitude while doom scrolling the hellscape of social media. You know what I'm saying, Trae? It's bleak existence, but you know what ain't bleak? My wiener. When I take BlueChew, you'll be mistaken for a soldier with that full salute, baby. That wiener ain't gonna be at half mast. It's at full tilt, son. I tell you what. And I love going to the mailbox every month, getting that little discreet white envelope, because as Trae mentioned, I actually do know my pharmacist, and she ain't gotta know what's going down here with me and my little buddy. Me and my little buddy, we got our own thing going on. And by the way, if you're out there like, but I don't have problems with my little buddy, I don't need this. All right, dude. It's not that you need it, but I promise you'll want it, because it just gives you that extra confidence. Because sometimes you get caught by surprise. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you and that guy ain't on the same page. Well, BlueChew will not only get you on the same page, it'll make them two pages stick together. Know what I'm saying? Make life easier by getting harder, and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of BlueChew free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring the podcast. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of BlueChew free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. I think it's promo code POA. That's what it's always been, right?
Mm-hmm. That is what it has always been.
Promo code POA, BlueChew.com. Do it to it.
And we're back. We're going to wrap it up here in a second with some airmail. Hopefully we got some good ones from y'all. I wouldn't know. Cho would know. The thing that I had that I want to talk about, I'm not even going to tell you because I want you to not know, but I don't want to start it right now, much like you didn't want to start Henry V. It's not that it's, I could summarize it, in plenty of time, but I think this whole conversation is going to hit for you and suck you into it. There's things about it that I know you have strong feelings about. So I don't want to.
Well, me and you would never prepare right now. Me and you would never prepare something for this show unless we thought it hit.
That is true.
Why would we do that? Make no sense. Yeah. All right. Well, we do have some airmail. Definitely one. Oh, this is cool. Subject line. Oh, by the way, email us at puttingonairs@gmail.com. I keep forgetting. You know what we suck at? Understanding that we have new listeners all the time. We just assume everybody's been here. Puttingonairs@gmail.com is where you can send us airmail. Subject line, Bentley ads. Hubby and I usually just listen to the podcast, but we decided to watch Fancy New Year's on New Year's Day after we went to see Nosferatu in sweatpants like classy adults. Am I in a hair towel with a beer and other sweatpants in Knoxville while my husband is making the black-eyed peas and greens? Absolutely. Anyways, one of the ad breaks, there was a Bentley ad, like the fancy cars, so y'all are truly fancy. Hubby and I watched a lot of Top Gear and Grand Tour reruns, but I'll pretend the algorithm doesn't exist. And here I thought I was fancy for upgrading my iPad without my Christmas bonus, like Clark Griswold in his pool. Shoo! Damn, I wish she hadn't have added that addendum, because I did for a second think like, damn, Bentley's advertising on our show. Right on. Who do they think we are?
Wait, hold on. What was the addendum? What's it?
She said that her husband and her watch a lot of Top Gear and stuff. So it's like, it could have just been the algorithm.
That's how those work? My bad.
I don't know.
Well, because she watched it on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah, that is how that works. Okay. Yeah. I didn't pick up. Even though she plainly said they normally listen, but then we're watching. Because, anyway, I thought, okay, yeah. Well, dude, people tell me all the time that they'll get an ad on one of
Mike
my
Huckabee
videos on it's like a campaign ad for Ted Cruz or something like that or whatever.
We've had people unsubscribe to us, and like I finally I used to respond to the emails. And by the way, this is a blanket phrase to say for all of y'all, just so you know, like the first couple times I'd respond to the emails, I was like, hey, you got to understand that like YouTube is based on your location, and like, we are not getting any money from Ted Cruz. Those are all completely random, and we have nothing to do with them. But I finally stopped responding because I was like, man, if you don't know us well enough to know that that's the case, like I can't do anything for you. Like, I wish that we got to pick our YouTube ads. That'd be wonderful, but we don't. Subject line. You knew I was going to pick this one. I used to think Trae was smart.
Okay.
Holy shit. How did Trae have such a massive stroke? Time zones already don't work according to solar position. Noon time is already different on the east and west edges of any given time zone. The concept of universal time already exists. It's called UTC. You could already just choose to set your clocks to UTC. Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, is the primary time standard globally used to regulate clocks and time. The only thing people would need to adjust is when is local noon. Noon does not need to be 12. Also, why do we use AM and PM? Those are anachronisms from the limits of pendulum-powered clocks. Also, daylight savings is pointless. Love you guys, Jeremiah.
Okay. UTC. Okay, sure. You could. All right. Mark can choose to set all his clocks and watches to UTC if he wants to. And he can live his life based on that. He's still going to have to do the math in his head. If he ever goes anywhere else, he's still going to have to adjust things accordingly to whatever that fucking clock says based on where he's at in the world, whether he likes that or not. Also,
so what's the point?
Time zones already don't work. When they've said time zones already don't work because of solar position, at first I was like, hold on, what? And then they said already it's off by a little bit on either the eastern or western edge of any given time zone. It's like, okay, but that's
it's not perfect.
Off by how much and how, you know what I mean? Like the time, how much of a difference are we talking about from what? Because I know that's like we were on the very western edge of the eastern time zone when I lived in Knoxville, and fundamentally there was
meaning that it got dark around when central time would have normally gotten dark. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's
that hits.
It's not.
In order to combat
that is not. That's a. I don't know what I can't even think of. I'm so flustered. I can't even think of the phrasing for how I'm trying to put it. But it's like a rounding error, but not. Right. That's not exactly. But I'm saying it's like that's not that. It still basically works that way.
Right.
In any given part of the world, 12 noon. I know you said noon don't have to be noon. I don't even know what the fuck that means. But
I don't even know what the word noon means.
Also, it's like midnight won't be midnight anymore because and wherever midnight
already shouldn't be midnight because it doesn't,
because it's not really midnight.
It's
That's
not
true.
It's not at all. It's the beginning of the morning.
Yes, but night is the absence of the sun. But also it's like midnight near the poles.
Midnight's 10:30.
Near the poles, it's just sunny for 30 days and none of this matters and all that shit's weird and people's time gets all fucked up for circadian rhythms and stuff. But in like most of the globe around it, noon is when it's high noon, is when the sun is at the highest point in the air. And again, people, I don't care what Jeremiah says. And I know that the idea of having names for times and stuff is shit we made up. But again, even when we were cavemen, they had the concept of the middle of the day. And that means things about what's happening where I live at that time of day. That means that's when certain animals or predators are out or are not out. And when the sun goes down, when the sun comes up, that means you plant shit. That means that's when you gather shit. Like the sun has always meant things about human routines, and we have assigned times to the sun's positioning, and time zones make it be consistent around the entire world. And I'm not going to come off that. I don't care. Maybe someone could force me to wrap my dumb head around why that isn't true, but it seems abundantly true to me. So that's all I'm saying.
You know what also happens when the sun goes down?
What?
Well, in this part of town, that lonesome feeling comes to my door.
Yes.
And I sit alone and think of losing you.
I knew you were either going to do that, or I thought you also, what's that, that much worse song.
When the sun comes up. Kenny Chesney?
No. It goes down. Is it We'll Be Grooving when the sun goes down?
Grooving. Yeah, you're right.
When the sun goes down.
No,
we'll
I picked
be
one
feeling all right. I know. Yeah. I know. But
yeah.
Anyway,
I think we both, before I get into our last email that I have to read based on the subject line alone, I think me and you can both agree that when it's dark, it's night, and when it's light, it's day.
Yes. And when the sun comes up, it's morning. When the sun is going down, it's evening.
Yes.
And everyone in every part of this world, except near the poles, lives that way.
I don't think I don't think 2 a.m. should be called 2 in the morning. That's all I'm saying. That's
fine. The whole AM, PM part, I don't give a fuck about none of that. All I'm saying is
midnight ain't midnight, goddammit.
Whatever the time we have designated that means the sun is doing this here, it should be the same on the other side of the world too, for when the sun is doing that on their side, in my opinion. And I think it's crazy to suggest otherwise. Like,
noted.
That's just me.
Subject line. And this is the last one. So we're running out of time, and it's fairly lengthy, and I think it deserves our full attention. Hey, dummies. You don't have Mormon listeners. You have a Mormon listener.
Okay.
Cheers from your self-appointed Utah/Mormon chief correspondent. You can use my name. It's Nate Watson. Right up front, I will tell you that I am not coming to Trae's show in Utah, but that has less to do with y'all insinuating the Mormon film industry is full of pedophiles and more with not living in Utah anymore.
Damn it.
I do have family and friends involved in the official church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that owns a chunk of downtown Salt Lake City and is the subject of the Broadway musical, which I can't wait to see one day. Media and the Mormon film cottage industry that overlaps sometimes with the church, Inc. The church does work through media companies it owns/runs, and even the larger American TV film industry. I don't know who the Mormon male actor is that you reference, but if he played young P.T. Barnum's father in The Greatest Showman, then I would say yes, he's kind of the Mormon Matt Bomer. Indie Mormon films have had their moments. They got a pre-hit Anne Hathaway appearance and peaked with Napoleon Dynamite, which appeared at the Sundance Film Fest and is the first and only Mormon indie film to get picked up by mainstream Hollywood. The Napoleon Dynamite director/creator did go on to make Nacho Libre starring Jack Black, so that gets a partial claim. I have thoughts on this that I'll get to in a minute. So that gets a partial claim. Neither is religious, but the humor and cultural references are certainly very familiar to Mormons. Mormons love to bring up prominent former Mormons in Hollywood. Aaron Eckhart, Chris Nolan's Two-Faced, who is also known in all of Mormondom for his The Church, Inc. work. I did not know that. Eckhart used to be a big Mormon actor. Ryan Gosling, and sort of Roseanne Barr. The family and friends that I know who work in Mormon film, I will vouch for not being pedophiles. However, back in the 80s when Mormon man Sterling Van Wagenen and was co-founding the Sundance Film Festival and making Mormon movies, he was also, you guessed it, porking little kids. There you go, vindicated. It would be many years and many years of some of his footage being used very prominently and in very liturgically sensitive. Liturgically.
Liturgically.
That's like lawyer litigation.
No, I think it means like doesn't it have to do with like the like church stuff?
Look it up. I need to know.
Liturgically, like church-wise, complicated.
Oh, okay.
Liturgical is relating to liturgy or public worship. Liturgy is a customary public ritual of worship performed by a religious group.
Okay. I learn something new every day. See? Never be afraid to ask questions. Before that became public, the Church, Inc. scrapped all his stuff and had the content remade. The Jim Caviezel Freedom film is not a Mormon production, but the character is based on Tim Ballard, an in-real-life Mormon who used his whole Saving Trafficked Children Foundation to, drumroll, allegedly groom and assault the women he worked with.
Yeah.
Till his oldest time.
Mark's talked a lot about that guy on
I'm certain
over the years.
One unfortunate side effect of the ruse he kept up while carrying out the alleged sting operations was that he kept pressuring the pimps he found to traffic children, and so they dipped, possibly for the first time, into trafficking of children. The same production company was permitted to use the studio in Provo, Utah, and that you guys mentioned on last week's episode, but for a different project, a fictionalized series on the life of Christ called The Chosen. I saw that on fucking Amazon Prime the other day, and I almost watched it out of morbid curiosity. They needed that help because that studio has permanent sets of Jerusalem and biblical scenes that get used a lot by the Church, Inc., who pumps out a lot of Bible story material. It sucks, and other cases outside the film industry have come to light. I just wanted to make sure that while I defend the honor of anyone who may be a good person, that I don't come across as defensive generally. I've always said it, and I think you will agree. Pork and kids don't hit, no matter which church you go to. Love y'all. Your chief Mormon respondent, Nate. Thank you, Nate. I appreciate that. And we are sorry for insinuating that everyone in the Mormon film industry was pedophile.
I feel like our primary insinuation was that any like hardcore religious sort of deal, organization, or industry is going to have some pedophilia going on, including the Mormon ones. But maybe I'd have to go back and listen to exactly how we put it.
And he ended up making the case for this, but at first when he said Napoleon Dynamite, I was like, okay, just because it was made by a Mormon, I'm not calling that a fucking Mormon movie, because that's just a funny goddamn movie. It happened to be made by, a Mormon, But I guess if he said, it's not overtly religious, but a lot of the themes in there were very Mormon-y. So he would know, I wouldn't. So there you go. We give everybody an equal shot here. Trae, where are you going to be this week or coming up?
Well, tonight and tomorrow night, I'm in Tacoma, Washington, and then next weekend I'm in Spokane, Washington. I am going back home in between, but Caleb Sinan will be featured for me both of those weekends. He's very, very funny feller, so come see us. And I'm actually, as Nate referenced, soon I'm going to be in Salt Lake City. I was going to say Nate should come, but of course he clarified that he would never. So hopefully his friends show up, friends and family. And at the end of January, Santa Barbara. A lot of other places after that. 2025 going to be lighting it up. So go to TraeCrowder.com. Come see me.
I'm working on putting together a couple dates, but I don't have any to announce right now. So I will just say, please consider subscribing to WeLoveCorey.com. That is my Patreon-ish type thing. It's a cup of coffee each month. I post all the time. You get a ton of bonus stuff, essays, bonus videos, bonus podcasts, rants, buttercream dream stuff. Also, I'm working on episode 2. As soon as we stop recording, I've been doing sort of a little mystery science theater-ish type thing with some old silent films. I released part 1 of the Forrester cut of Nosferatu, and I'm working on part 2 tonight. Very stupid, but very fun. It's WeLoveCorey.com. You will not only be entertained, but you will be helping to send my child to college. Also, listen to our other podcasts, Well Read, Weekly Skews, Gravy Baby, everything in the Skewniverse. We love you for it, and get some merch at StayFancyMerch.com. All right? We love you. Stay fancy, you some bitches.
Skew.
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 Here's Lydia Lovelace.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Royalty and rednecks are alike. They both like cutting and picking fights. Biscuits and baked beans where they don't belong. Sit on down with Corey and Trae and learn some fancy shit today. We'll laugh a little even when they're wrong. They'll take you to a magical place where if you call someone a cunt, nobody cares. They keep it debonair at putting on airs, putting on airs, putting on airs.